Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Pro Wrestling Report PrimeTime live here on Fight TV. Damian Nelson, along with Shane Hurricane Helms, David Octavius Tiberius, your elected backyard one-time knockout, straight-edge, hardcore Hall of Famer hero. And let me do that again, because it is the Super Show, and it's only super because we have a bona fide superhero in our midst today. Ladies and gentlemen, please allow me to introduce the star of this very program, the one, the only, of, well, every different gimmick I could think of. I was going to call you Sugar, but he is Dave Sugar. He is Hurricane Helms. Shane, how the hell are you here tonight, and how was that introduction?
I'm doing good. I hope I can live up to it. Dave, you got a question there?
Did you just say he's Dave's Sugar? What does that mean?
Yeah.
What does that mean?
That's how rumors start.
We want to welcome everybody watching us live on Fight TV. We want to welcome everyone watching us live on YouTube. We want to welcome everyone live watching us on Facebook Live, and also welcome everyone watching us live on Twitter/Periscope. Gentlemen, I am stoked. I am psyched. I am hyped. What a show we have tonight, because we got a lot of shiznet to talk about.
We have 4 different shows to talk about. We have Impact Wrestling, we have NXT, we have AEW, and then we have that Extreme Rules horror show edition of a pay-per-view.
The horrible show?
You could call it that too. Yeah, that works for me.
We are taking your comments live tonight. We're going to be sharing them interactively on the screen. So if you're watching us on any of our social channels, you should just provide your commentary to what Dave says that you don't agree with and what Shane says that actually makes sense, and we will share them on the air. Also, if you are watching us live on Fight TV, our tremendous partner, Fight TV, that's F-I-T-E, Fight, you can also comment in the live chat there. So, gentlemen, it's been a solid week since the last time we were together, but it's been less than a week since you both did a Be the Booker for both TNA Slammiversary and also for WWE Extreme Rules. Before we follow up on those 2 events, I want to ask you your opinion of the 2 events over the course of the weekend, because it's been a long time since we had 2 pay-per-view events over the course of one weekend. Saturday night was Impact Wrestling's Slammiversary. Sunday night was the horrible show from WWE, the Extreme Rules event. Which show took the win for the weekend? We'll start with you, Shane Helms.
Well, first of all, I just need to comment, though, that since we last talked to you, we watched, you got 2 to 3 hours of Slammiversary. You got 2 to 3 hours of the horror show. You got 3 hours of Monday Night Raw. There's 2 hours of Impact. We watched AEW and NXT. So if my mind is a little razzled right now, or frazzled, see, I can't even say the word frazzled. That's how razzled I am. And also, there was a near murder in UFC Saturday night. I sent you guys the clip of that guy waking up.
Yeah.
So there was a lot going on. But to answer your question of the 2 pay-per-views this weekend, Slammiversary and WWE's Extreme Rules, I felt that Slammiversary was the better of the 2 shows. I actually enjoyed them both. I think going into Extreme Rules, my expectations were a little low, and despite some really kabuki finishes, overall I had a good time watching it. I wouldn't watch it again by any stretch of the imagination, but of the 2, I stick with my guns that Slammiversary was the better show.
All right. Well, David Hiro, what do you say? And before we get to that, we want to welcome a couple of people watching who've already commented on the broadcast here live on our social media channels. We've got Wrestling HDD and Mick Thomason. Welcome, both of you joining us from YouTube. We're looking for your comments from Facebook and Periscope on Twitter as well. But David Hiro, 2 big shows over one weekend. Which show took the win for you?
I can't believe it that in 2020 I am actually saying that TNA Impact Wrestling had the better pay-per-view. They just had better wrestling, better stories, better finishes. We weren't looking for eyeballs and swamps and kabuki finishes with Asuka. It was just WWE just dropped the ball and kicked it out of bounds, with the exception of one match, and I'm sure we'll talk about that later, which was my match of the entire pay-per-view on Sunday.
Well, we will get to the match by match, or at least an important match breakdown. But first, I want to welcome more people joining us live. Again, you can join us not only on our great partner, Fight TV, that's FITE Fight, but also on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. Welcome James Weo and Nathan Banks, along with John Mel, who is watching us from England on YouTube. That is, in case you are not familiar, that is across the pond.
Oh,
thank you.
Sweet.
Trying to educate you guys. You guys, as far as your childhood.
Look at that big brain on Brad.
Your childhood cartoon heroes you don't know. Calling people George when their name is actually John. You don't know the flavors of Kool-Aid. I can't wait to find out what you aren't aware of this week, either or both of you. So let's get down to it and let's talk about it. And I guess the show with the most buzz of the weekend, the show both of you rated higher, was Slammiversary. So let's talk about that one first. You guys did be the booker, of course. You showed how you would book the matchups. We want to hear from the live audience as well. What did you think of the first show we're going to talk about, which is Slammiversary, which saw a lot of big returns? And to start the show, one of the larger returns, which I think was great because it set the tone for the show as well, was that of the Motor City Machine Guns, Chris Sabin and Alex Shelley. Shane, what'd you think?
I think that was a very nice surprise. You know, that really got the buzz starting for that. I think there was some good buzz going into the show, but once you threw the Motor City Machine Guns out there, it just seemed like from a social media standpoint, the buzz really picked up, and they carried that buzz to Tuesday night when they defeated the North to become the Impact Tag Team Champions. That was such a good match. I wish, I tweeted about it Tuesday night. I wish there could have been a crowd there, but unfortunately, we're just going to be talking about that until we have crowds. But the North had a good showing on Slammiversary, and I think Dave and I both picked Shamrock and Sami Callihan to come out with those tag team titles. Maybe the reason they didn't is because of the Motor City Machine Guns, coming back to Impact. Who knows? But yeah, that was a great way to really build the momentum for the night with the Motor City Machine Guns.
And David Hiro, how about you?
Yeah, I thought it was a great surprise. They weren't really on anybody's radar. Everybody was talking about EC3 or Eric Young or Heath and the Good Brothers, but nobody was thinking about the original Impact guys returning. And when the Machine Guns came back, their resume and credentials speak for themselves. They have done it just about all in Impact Wrestling. And to see them back, get the win, then show up on Tuesday and win the tag titles, you can't help but feel that Impact's going in the right direction. And it's going in the right direction, not with the big ticket stars, I guess you could say, but the guys that make sense, the guys that are going to do the best business for Impact going forward.
And they did it with, I talked about and said that the Motor City Machine Guns set the tone for the night. And Dave, you make a great point. We weren't expecting them because everyone was so focused on those whose 90-day non-competes had just expired. TNA had Impact Wrestling had teased us with who may show up at Slammiversary, and they weren't two of the teases. So a pleasant surprise, a great way to start the show, a great match against the Rascals. As we see now, they go against the North. It was about a 15-minute matchup to start. No ring rust, no rust at all on either Shelley or Sabin. They are the DNA of TNA and Impact Wrestling, and I thought it was a fantastic surprise return to kick off the show, setting the tone for the night. So with that, the next matchup was an old school rules match. It was for the TNA World Heavyweight Championship, the unsanctioned TNA World Heavyweight Championship. It will be the everywhere man known as Tommy Dreamer going up against the champion Moose, who would ultimately get the win. David, we'll start with your thoughts.
Well, Shane and I both had booked Moose to retain his TNA World Heavyweight Championship at Slammiversary. And Tommy Dreamer is the guy that he always has a great match and he gets over the guys he's working with. And that's exactly what he did here with Moose. He elevated Moose to the next level of legitimacy by having a great hardcore match with him. Tommy's been around for so long, he doesn't need titles because he just has never wanted them. So there's no reason to put that title that isn't even recognized as a title on Tommy. But yeah, I thought it was a good match. I thought it was a good physical match. I thought they told a good story. No one puts together those kind of matches better than Tommy Dreamer, and Moose was the perfect dance partner for him in that match.
And Shane, what did you think?
Yeah, we both picked Moose. I think Moose is one of the most marketable talents and products in TNA right now, or Impact, and that's going to be difficult for us to ever differentiate. So, so I'm glad they went that way. I think it was a good match. Tommy looked good in losing. Moose looked good in winning. What more could you ask for?
And next, it was a gauntlet match, ladies and gentlemen, a gauntlet for the gold match, determined #1 contender for the Impact Knockouts Championship. Some 20 minutes saw the final elimination of Taya Valkyrie and Kylie Ray getting the win. Shane, what did you think of this one?
It was good. This one, there was parts of this match that kind of went off the rails a little bit, but find me a gauntlet match that doesn't. I've been in a few that went off the rails, so. We knew going in, me and Dave talked about this, that this was going to be the most difficult match to put together with that many bodies. Gauntlet matches are difficult. You got to be careful about getting really long because you have all the multiple entrances with the talents involved. But they also did a good job about, highlighting some of the female talents. And, they sprinkled in some comedy there. It didn't all play out that well, but the ideas were solid. And, sometimes that's the danger with trying things that are funny. Sometimes they don't come off nowhere near as funny as you think they are. But Dave, in the end, I picked Kylie Ray. I think Dave, you picked Tyra.
Yes, yeah. And those were the two finals.
Yeah, we were both neck and neck on who we thought it would be. But I think Kylie Ray, they're going with somebody new with her, and I think she's a solid pick.
David, what say you?
I agree with Shane. No. I agree with Shane. It was kabuki-ish at times. It had a Royal Rumble feel more than a Gauntlet feel. I think they used Johnny Bravo maybe a little bit more than they should have, considering they're trying to focus on the girls. But hey, the business at hand was to elevate the girls, show them off. They did that. Kylie Ray, now the #1 contender, and she is going to be a great babyface for the new Impact Wrestling Women's Champion.
Yeah, she's really likable. And, sometimes that's hard to find in a babyface these days. You're supposed to like these guys. I think we forget that at times. You just go, hey, this guy's been a heel forever, or this person's been a heel, so let's make him a babyface. And they don't turn out to be as likable as we want them to be. So to have a babyface as likable as Kylie Ray is really important.
Next match was a singles match for the X Division Championship, and I believe we saw a new X Division champion crowned in Chris Bay defeating Willie Mack. David Hiro, start off your thoughts on this matchup.
I thought it was two guys that went out there to try to steal the show. I thought it was solid. Chris Bay definitely elevating his game. Willie Mack has always been solid in doing so, and Chris Bay leaves as the new X Division heavyweight champion. I thought it was a great match and a great way to keep it. It was open-ended where they're going to continue going forward with both guys.
And Shane?
Yeah, this match was tough because, you got two kind of baby faces. It's a pop-oriented match where there's no crowd, so you're not going to get that pop. You're not going to have any emotion. You're not going to really have heat, so to speak. But that being said, it was an athletic display. I love Willie Mack. I think Chris Bay is going to be a big star going forward. They had a nice little rematch on Tuesday as well. Really, Willie enacted his rematch clause, but it didn't pay off too well for him on Tuesday. But it was good. Both of those guys are really talented, and neither one of them are going anywhere. So it was a good match.
All right. Well, that as we continue to talk about TNA Impact Wrestling Slammiversary, we've got another matchup. It was a tag match. Lots of championships on the line. This time it was the tag team championship as the North defeated Ken Shamrock and Sally Callahan, the North retaining the tag team championships in 15 and a half, actually close to 16 minutes. David Hiro, I think we may have started with you last time. Let's do it again. Your thoughts on this tag team championship?
Fine, be that way.
You know what? I honestly believe that this was a great match for the North. It may have been their best victory yet in Impact Wrestling because you beat the iconic, the legendary Ken Shamrock, and you've beaten the guy that calls himself the draw of Impact Wrestling, and Sami Callihan. We thought for sure there might be more dissension between the two of them, but it was solid. I mean, Ken Shamrock is still doing amazing things well into his 50s, and a great win for the North. And shocking, because I know Shane and I both had booked Sami and Shamrock to leave as the Impact Tag Team Champions that night.
How about you, Shane?
Yeah, I thought, like Dave said, I thought the North looked good. I thought Ethan Page, he's been putting time into the gym. He looked great. I like seeing that. You know, there's kind of a pattern I've noticed with some talents during the COVID era that they're showing up not quite in the shape they need to be. Well, I don't know what the hell else you're doing. There ain't nothing else to do. But Ethan looked great. The North looked good. I think storyline wise, I still would have liked to seen Shamrock and Callahan win, and we could have had some craziness between the two. But with the inclusion of the Motor City Machine Guns into the picture, I think we know why the North ended up getting the win that night. But I still look forward to seeing the interaction between Sami Callihan and Shamrock. Shamrock looks incredible. He looks incredible for somebody that's 30, much less somebody that's 50.
Yeah.
You know, Shane, talking about Ethan Page, he looks like he's almost ready to become a breakout single star. You know, he just carried himself differently. He looked like he's never looked better physically as far as I can remember, and that guy can talk. So it's only a matter of time before that happens.
And the confidence that comes with looking your best, that's just something you can't really put a price tag on sometimes. Because I mean, it's a cliche, but when you look good, you feel good, and you can see that. And there was a little swagger. I thought there's just a little extra swagger.
Money. It's all about the money. Price tag. Not good.
When are we going to karaoke? Jeez.
I don't know.
I'm a good singer.
Sure, we'll go with that. So speaking of,
I guess you guys are ready to tap out or submit, much like Jordianne Grace did to Deonna Purrazzo for the Impact Knockouts Championship. This one went 15 minutes. Shane, what do you say about this match?
It was good. It was solid. It was technical. It was aggressive. This was a match where, you saw a champion that was trying to defend, and you saw a challenger that was trying to win. So I really liked the pace of the match. I'm kind of surprised that they took it off Jordan Grace. But, it was still a really good match. Deonna Purrazzo is going to carry the championship well. And two, you can't be a champion forever. Everybody's got to drop that strap when a good challenger comes along. So it was surprising, but I don't hate it.
And David, how about you?
I wasn't surprised that Deonna Purrazzo left the Impact Women's Champion. But I was surprised how she did it. I'm surprised that she made the bigger and stronger Jordan Grace tap. That was the last scenario I thought was going to happen with them. But it was a great match. And Jordan Grace, it's a matter of time before she's back at it again. Of course, Deonna Purrazzo now has Kylie Ray to deal with. But I mean, right now she has 2 and actually 3 or 4 credible contenders waiting for her. So it was a solid match.
Solid matchup indeed. Lots of championships changing hands on Slammiversary this past Saturday. So they made the statement with the Motor City Machine Guns. They made the statement with a lot of people returning, but they also made a lot of statements about not only that being part of the direction for the company, but also changing of the guards in many of the championship matchups, including a brand new Impact World Champion in Eddie Edwards. Eddie Edwards, who now, let's go back in the annals of time here. I've long been an Eddie Edwards fan. I was watching Slammiversary off and on as I was otherwise detained. I was surprised that was him. He looks like a completely different man from the last time I saw him, and it's not a good or bad thing. I'm just like, who is this guy? And why they keep talking about Eddie Edwards, and where is Eddie Edwards? But be that as it may.
You thought it was Eddie Kingston, didn't you? That's who you thought
that would
it
be
was.
Wednesday. That was last night.
Oh, okay.
Different. But anyways, Eddie Edwards in 25 minutes or so wins the Impact World Championship. David Hiro, is this how you booked it or would have booked it? And if what did you think of the match?
Well, Shane and I, when we booked this match, we figured if it wasn't going to be EC3, that the best choice had to be Eddie Edwards. He has been the heart and soul of Impact Wrestling, I would say, for the last 5 or 6 years now. He's been there. He hasn't left. He's been the good soldier, the trooper. He's been He's been the guy that they've leaned on, and he's always come through. But Eric Young, great surprise seeing him, vicious, antagonistic, violent, and Eric Swan was involved. I thought it was a great mesh of everything that is now Impact Wrestling. When you have the new young guys and Edwards and EY, and Ace Austin and Trey, it was a great blend. It was a good match, and I was very happy to see Eddie Edwards leave. Even though the other champions are all new, Eddie Edwards is the one constant. And I think that shows that Impact Wrestling is ready to go forward with their ring general in Eddie Edwards and everyone else to follow along.
Big returns in this matchup, big returns throughout the night. Eddie Edwards, the new champion, representing Impact Wrestling going forward. Shane, what did you think?
Yeah, I thought we even mentioned, what if they throw another guy in this match? I think we mentioned that this past Thursday. And so Rich Swann coming out was pretty nice. Eric Young looking great. So happy for him. So talented. And some of his comments on social media since that have been pretty entertaining and pretty telling as well. I like the red herring that they threw with us and threw with everybody with. They made us believe that it was going to be EC3. And then we got the tease of EC3 at the end, but it was just, to me, it was actually better that it wasn't him, that you get Eric Young out and you get an aggressive Eric Young, and he goes and he takes out a returning Rich Swann. So you got all that intensity and focus on Eric Young for that. But then you got Eddie Edwards, as your new champion. And this past Tuesday, they even replayed the match when he beat Bobby Lashley for the TNA World Heavyweight Championship back in 2016, I believe, 17 perhaps, but I think 16. And just shows how good he has been for a long time. And what they've done with the championships is something that me and Dave talked about as well. You got to be careful about just putting them all on new people, new people coming in. I mean, you can't disrespect the people that have been there for the last couple of years carrying the banner of TNA and working in the trenches when things seemed a little less than glory, and so, with Chris Bay, he's been there for a while. He's a champion. Deonna Purrazzo was the only kind of new champion that they brought in, so they had a good mix. So you got Eddie Edwards, and even though the Motor City Machine Guns, you can't call them new. Like you said, DNA of TNA, because they've been there for years. They found a good way to mix up these champions in a way that just generates all kinds of interest from all different areas. So really solid booking ideas.
Question for you guys, and Shane, I'm going to point this one to you especially. Eric Young, who we just talked about, made his return to Impact Wrestling. Dave, I know you had high hopes for him in WWE, and Shane, you to a degree probably worked with him during his time in WWE. But Eric Young has come out very publicly saying that the WWE, did not know how to use him. The question I think that was posed to him was, how could somebody with his talents not get found time in a 3-hour program to be used? So a pointed question, Shane, you most recently worked as a producer with WWE. If you have any insight or any explanation or reasoning that you could share to what Eric Young said about his time and his lack of utilization in WWE.
I'm not going to disagree with a single word he said. I was there. I mentioned for him. I pitched ideas for him, and they went nowhere. And it was one of those things where even amongst the producers, we would just, but as a producer, that's kind of your job. You got to keep throwing those ideas out there, especially if you believe in that person. And I did believe in Eric Young. I still do. And you keep throwing ideas out there and you hoping that, they'll take them. But, at the end of the day, that decision comes from up top. And if I talked about this on social media when somebody, actually it was Mark Madden from, from WCW fame, Pittsburgh radio show guy, and he's like, why wasn't he a bigger star? And I told him, I said, in TNA he was, in NXT he was, in WWE you can't score if they don't give you the ball. On the main roster he never was really given that proper opportunity, and it's just different for everybody. You don't know why. Some guys, they'll give 10,000 opportunities and they'll keep striking out, but they'll stick with them until they finally get it. That doesn't happen for everybody. Sometimes they don't give you the proper opportunities. Sometimes you can strike out once and you're done. It's just, if there was a solid explanation for that answer, I could cure a lot of headaches in the business, but there isn't, and unfortunately, it's probably always going to be that way. unfortunately.
So why the discrepancy across talents? Why do some people get those repeated chances and others, like Eric Young in this case, don't get them? Is it more who you know than what you can do in the ring?
Well, definitely who you know helps, but like I said, there's no real concrete answer whatsoever. There's sometimes it's a business thing. Certain talents that, there was a business attached to their name or a monetary amount attached to their name, and it didn't matter if they struck out. It didn't matter if they went out there and stunk it up, that's just part of the behind the scenes games. That's very difficult for a lot of us to play. But, Eric Young did say it best. Eric Young was good at everything. He made a fishing show entertaining. Like, I don't know how that's even possible. The only fishing show I've ever watched was Eric Young, and because of it, I think at one time he was in the running to be the new spokesperson or whatever, face of the most interesting man in the world.
Yeah,
whatever that product was, he was in the running for that. He literally can do it all. He was so entertaining. And I told a story too about, it was at one of the Monday Night Raw tapings, and they got all these different monitors during the back, and they were filming the main event matches, the show main event. And it was Cedric Alexander versus Eric Young. And me and AJ Styles are just at the monitor watching it, and they are just killing it. They're tearing it up. Everything's great, and when it was over, we just looked at each other, and what we were both saying is, why ain't this shit on Monday Night Raw? That's what we were saying. Telepathically, we had this message to each other, why ain't this shit on Monday Night Raw? But we knew what we knew. And so we just kind of looked at each other. We had the man nod, and we walked away. Eric Young doesn't have bad matches. It's something I talk about, like, whether you liked Hurricane or not, I never struck out at base. I might not have hit a home run every time, but I got to base every time. Eric Young's the same way. He's never going to strike out. It's always going to be at least good. Most of the time, it's going to be great, but it's going to be at least good. And I'll take, man, give me 50 Eric Youngs. I'll take that any time with it. I wish we had more Eric Youngs in this.
For me, the writing on the wall was when, I want to say it was January or February, when Aleister Black was being reintroduced. And he had a match on Monday Night Raw with EY, and it was 2 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next week, Aleister Black has another match on Monday Night Raw with a local enhancement talent, and it was like 5 or 6 minutes. And I'm thinking, you give Eric Young only 2 minutes with Aleister Black, and EY can make Aleister Black look 1,000,000 times better. He already is a great talent, but he could just make him look that much better. But instead, they're giving that opportunity to someone that almost hurt Aleister Black on that show on Raw. I just like, God, they're just missing the boat with Eric Young, because again, he is talented. When he was the TNA Impact Heavyweight Champion, he was believable. He was the underdog. You cheered for him. You loved him. And he just, everything he did, and he always hit, at least a triple, but most of the time he would hit a home run.
Guys, we got 2 minutes left to talk about Slammiversary, and we actually have a very interesting question here from our Facebook user, David Stronach, who makes a comment, actually, who says AJ Styles was pretty much the only TNA original from the very first pay-per-view of the company in 2002 to be a major player on the main roster in WWE. And Shane, I want to throw this one to you, because I think it was AJ and maybe Samoa Joe, and I could be missing some, and I apologize if I do, that came and made big debuts immediately on the main roster, skipping the NXT step. So obviously they've got tremendous talents. They deserve that. But you could argue that an Eric Young may have deserved that as well. What was different about Joe and Styles in the perception of them and the ability to present them at big events and big debuts versus that of Eric Young or EC3 or even Bobby Roode, for that matter?
No, I would say Samoa Joe went through NXT as well, right?
Yeah, he did. He was actually the champ for a little while.
AJ was the only one that really just skipped that. And AJ had, went to Japan and made a big name for himself. And more than likely that was in AJ's deal. Like, I ain't going to NXT. I'm not going to be. And, I thought that was a smart move. If you got this guy and you want to present him as this outside world-class talent, you don't take him to what was still at that time the developmental. You don't do that, because that's just going to make them seem less than. And in the eyes of people that don't know, AJ Styles, and you can't assume that every WWE fan does. A lot of them did. Obviously, the reaction he got was, dare I say, phenomenal. So a lot of people did know him. But if you send them down to the minor, what would be the developmental and minor leagues, whatever. If you send them down there first, and for whatever reason it doesn't work, now you've really shot yourself in the foot. And it totally would have worked because AJ will get over anywhere he goes. But that's just a perception thing. And I think more than likely it came from the confidence of either Vince or Hunter or somebody say, all right, AJ will be ready. Maybe Joe, they weren't sure about. Maybe Eric, they weren't sure about. Maybe Bobby Roode, I guess they just weren't sure about. Let's see how well they do here before we bring them up here. And
AJ had the perfect storm because he was making his debut in Orlando, which is where he spent the first 13, 14 years with Impact Wrestling TNA. And then in the Rumble, he gets into the ring with Roman Reigns, who is the Antichrist as far as at the time that
yes.
WWE fans were. So it was the perfect storm for him. But let's not forget, I remember speaking to somebody at WWE the morning of the Royal Rumble, and Vince McMahon truly had no idea who AJ Styles was. He thought he was another guy that just did flips. So going into that, Vince McMahon had very low expectations as to how good AJ was going to be. And you got to believe he was pleasantly surprised because he wound up on that SmackDown brand and he just went straight to the moon. So if AJ would have gone to NXT, you're right. It takes away a lot of the shine, a lot of the luster. But not saying he's old, but at his age, you don't want to take the chance of getting hurt down in developmental either.
Exactly.
Fair enough, guys. That was TNA Slammiversary. They would follow it up on Tuesday with another tremendous episode of Impact. And one thing I want to focus on from that episode of Impact is sort of what we saw on Saturday, and then on Impact Wrestling on Tuesday. EC3. It's not his home. He doesn't belong anywhere. He's signed, but not signed with Impact Wrestling. He's really reinvented himself. And what does it all mean, David Hiro?
He's almost like Palestine. You know what I mean? He's off on his own, doing his own thing. But it's just like, you got EC3. He's a man without a country.
Is this our first Palestine reference on the show?
I think it is.
Well, okay. Why not, right? But you know what? It's going to be great for him because he's the outsider. He's following his own narrative. That's his gimmick going forward. And he's not a Carter anymore. He's not the top 1%. He's now EC3. And what a great physical and emotional transformation he's done. I mean, for him right now, the sky is the limit in Impact Wrestling.
Yeah, I love what he did. Moose is an interesting guy for him to start off with. I'm not sure, where they're going with that, if anywhere. But I'm just really happy for EC3. You're talking about another guy that wasn't utilized properly. I mean, the first couple of weeks on WWE, he's not allowed to talk. That's his strong suit. His talking is way better. He'll tell you his talking is way better than his matches. And that's what you don't let him do. That's the exact opposite of what you do with EC3. He looks a little bit more, he looks a little leaner now. Man, he's been working out nonstop. So, man, I'm excited for what he's got going for it. And he was a guy, too, man. I mean, he was just on a roll in TNA before he left there, So much, was doing so much good stuff. Got in NXT, was doing okay, couple concussions here and there. That kind of derailed him a little bit. And then just never really, I just couldn't find the groove in WWE, Like I said, too, that creative thing where you're not letting him talk. Wow, that just didn't work. And especially at a time, keep in mind, they brought him in against Moxley when it's announced that Moxley is leaving. Yeah. So now Moxley has all this fan favoritism. So the fans are all behind Moxley, even though he's supposed to be the heel. They got EC3 in this babyface position where he's not allowed to talk, although all the sympathy is actually for Moxley. It was. You talk about how AJ Styles had the perfect scenario for booking. This was the worst scenario for booking for EC3.
Exactly.
And it got dug in such a hole. Man, You know, how do you get the fucking Chilean miners couldn't got out of that hole? That's how difficult. You want to bring up Palestine? I'll bring up the Chilean miners.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Let's
we
get
are
geographical
global,
up in
we
here.
are worldwide. We are live all over the world
Exactly.
right now, and we are big in Finland. In fact, the #1 sports podcast in Finland. And let's
Yes,
try not to offend them away. But thank you for joining us live on Fight TV. Damian Nelson, along with David Hiro, and
Whoa. I'm not done yet about EC3.
I had to do
The beautiful thing about EC3 changing his look and everything is now he will no longer be compared to MJF because it's no longer the same type of snotty, entitled character.
I never heard him compared to MJF. Is that a thing?
They're very similar. When he was Ethan Carter III, EC3, when he first came in, very similar to the character that MJF is today.
But he was well before MJF.
Of course he was, but MJF has been on AEW TV for the past year now, whereas EC3 has not.
Okay. All right. Okay. One last question, and this comes to us from another viewer. This one on YouTube. Want to welcome all of you watching us, including James Weisner, Nathan Banks, YouTube user Wait Until Dawn, David Stronach on Facebook, TY1822 on YouTube as well. But Lee Lower had a question, and the question is, and this has been widely discussed, and some people said it should have been a part of one of the shows this week. But his question is, what do you guys think about Zack Ryder or Mike and Maria Kanellis going to Impact Wrestling?
I'll let Shane start with that one.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I mean, both of those, I mean, that whole group of people are talented. So, I mean, I'd like to see them somewhere. I don't think you need to force it all in one show. You know, if they are going to bring them here or there, it's good that they don't bring too many in at one time, because then you get lost in the shuffle. You know, and you don't want that. So there's plenty of time to bring those guys in. But I look forward to seeing what they do. You know, they're both talented. Mike's talented. Mike had a pretty decent run in Impact back in the day when he was the Miracle, who Maria pronounces as Meerkat somehow. But it is what it is. But I'm looking forward to seeing what they do. You know, Maria's had some interesting comments about WWE recently as well, and you know, she's entitled. You know, she's entitled to say, entitled in a good way. She's entitled to feel the way she does. And so I don't know if you'll see them back in WWE. I'd be super surprised at that. That was another you know, talent that lost favor and could never quite get it back. And did some really good stuff once he went to 205. You know, his main roster push didn't go quite that well. Talking about Kanellis, then he went and kind of rededicated himself, worked out, came back looking amazing. Was doing some work on 205 that was just, as far as in-ring goes, as good as he's ever done, and seemed to be like really on a good trajectory at that point. But then here comes the COVID. Next thing you know, they're sent home, and you know, so I'd be surprised to expect them to go back. But you know, I mean, if business picks up and the money's there, maybe they can go back. Who knows? But I expect them to see them pop up somewhere.
You know, one team we didn't talk about that also made their debut. It actually occurred before Slammiversary, but the former Gallows and Anderson, now part of Impact Wrestling. In fact, they even went out to say and have been open in their conversation since that they had talks with AEW and turned down a big money contract with AEW. And in fact, Impact Wrestling is paying them more than that big money contract that AEW offered. That I found to be surprising. Now, we know Impact Wrestling has a huge parent company and Anthem Entertainment behind them, so they've got
some of that Al money. They got some of that Al money, boy. There we go.
Well, they now have offered it to this team. Now they've been very vocal in their dissatisfaction for several people personally in WWE, but they have made an impact in Impact. And Dave, what did you think of them showing up on Slammiversary or just before Slammiversary last weekend?
I think that they were presented as big stars, as a big free agent signing. And you know what? They bring a different legitimacy to the tag team division, because now you got two guys that are world-renowned, world champions everywhere they've been. You know, they've been the champs in New Japan. They've been the champs in WWE. Gallus, I believe, was a tag team champion in Impact. They've been everywhere. They've always had gold. So I think it's going to be a great signing. They have a huge fanfare. They're still part of the Bullet Club. Even if they're not going to call themselves that, they're always going to be Too Sweeting. They do a monster job on merchandising, and it's going to be really interesting to see how they gel with the Motor City Machine Guns and the North, and maybe a Shamrock and Sami Callihan match down the road.
Well, thank you for those comments. And you know what? We have just gone 40 minutes on Impact Wrestling Slammiversary. I love it. It was great. It was a great show overall. We got your comments earlier on, but we've now got to move on here on the Super Show, presented to all of you around the world by a tremendous brand of wrestling clothing being modeled tonight by David Hiro and Hurricane Helms. Dave, tell us a little bit about who you're wearing.
Well, Damien, the question is for you is, who'd you ever beat? Which is absolutely nobody. But you can get this shirt and the one that Shane Helms is wearing. Go to collarandelbowbrand.com. Use the promo code PWR360. The late summer line is dropping next week. I got a sneak peek. Some very cool stuff is coming. collarandelbowbrand.com, promo code PWR360.
Awesome. The question is, will you get the shirts first or will I?
Probably you, because you obviously know a guy way more higher up than I do. Yes.
Oh, I definitely. Like I say every week, and I say it on Highway to Helms, I wear Collar and Elbow Brand pretty much every single day. So,
hey, you know what? I got to say about these shirts, of which I have several, not only do they look great and tremendous, but they're so damn comfortable. It's that soft cotton, you know, they fit well. They accentuate my buys and my tries very, very good along with the trap. They really
wait. How do they accentuate your tries? That's what I want to know.
My triceps.
Oh, okay.
Well, I'm huge.
He's huge in Finland.
He was huge in China, too. Come on.
So I want to challenge you guys to something now. It is 7:42 p.m. Eastern time. We're live on Fight TV, FITE Fight. We're live on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter as well. I want to spend from 7:42 p.m. to 7:48 p.m. talking about Extreme Rules. So we have 6 minutes. That's about all.
6 minutes?
That's all about. I think that's about all it's worth. So
it wasn't bad. You know, the in-ring match with Seth Rollins and Rey Mysterio was really good. The match itself was good. The ending, absolutely ridiculous, and nothing we can say is going to change that fact. Other than on Monday Night Raw, that guy yelling out "eye for an eye" was the pop of the night, and I've yelled it out constantly since then at just random strangers and animals on the farm. You know,
those poor animals.
There was the match with Asuka was good. Also, another ridiculous finish that just made no sense whatsoever and really took away from a really good match. You know, you got finally Cesaro and Nakamura get the tag team champions. I believe Dave and I both picked that. Glad to see that. Love the New Day, but I want to see Nakamura and Cesaro get a run with that. Just to fast track this. As far as the Swamp match goes, I applaud them for trying something, but
terrible. Just terrible.
Yeah, it didn't work for me at all. And I guess the finish was that Braun Strowman got drowned, and that's it for him.
Here's the thing.
I mean, what happened?
Are swamps that deep? I've never seen
I've
never
been in one. Never been in a swamp.
I'm just saying, you would think that Braun Strowman could have just stood up. You know what I mean?
Not if he's getting drowned and the water turned into lava.
I do live in New Jersey now, so I might be able to talk swamp.
Well, hey, but you know what? I was told that they used the red Kool-Aid for that effect.
Oh,
Damien would have called it fruit punch. Yeah,
there's a lot of red Kool-Aid in this state.
Yeah,
I wish there were more.
I think there is. I think you're right about that. There's a lot of red in North Carolina too. It don't taste like shit. You know what I'm saying? What?
Hey, so in addition to what you talked about, Shane, and I'm sorry if I missed this, but we did get a new tag team champions in a tables match. Cesaro, Shinsuke Nakamura. I almost said Suzuki. Shinsuke Nakamura defeated the New Day and ended a pretty long and good reign for that team. David Hiro, what do you think of the new champs?
You know what? My takeaway was the finish. That power bomb through the two tables, huge bump, great way to start off the show. I thought that was going to set the tone for a very aggressive, I don't want to say violent, but a very aggressive show. And it was aggressive until it came to the finishes. And it seemed like people were opening up fortune cookies to get finishes. None of them made sense. Just a bunch of, it's like it's just a bunch of stale cookies. Nothing was good.
Yeah, the Asuka finish, she accidentally missed the ref. She gave the ref the miss, who I did put on Twitter, sold the mist as well as anybody has since it came back. So I think some of the people that have taken the miss, watch how he sells it. That was great. But then Bailey just rips the referee's shirts off. That was assault, right? You can't strip a human being naked, right?
Especially today. Absolutely. Especially, you can't be doing
that. She's the referee. It was just. That was just so.
You know what, though, Shane? Honestly, I think Asuka somehow through telepathy or through her superpowers was listening to you on Twitch complaining about that referee's haircut.
No, that was a different referee.
Really? So they had two referees with bad haircuts?
Maybe, but that was a different. The other one's actually even worse.
I want to talk, though, guys, about the eye for an eye match. Now,
no.
Dave, you and I talked about this, and we knew going into it this was going to be BRUTAL, brutal, hashtag. But I was watching on about a 15-minute delay on the WWE Network, and I saw Ray say he was on the steps. All of a sudden, he goes, I need a doctor. I'm like, is he singing Eminem? Is he talking about Dre or what?
Yeah.
So then I rewind it, and I keep going with that 30-second or 10-second back gimmick. And I'm like, what did I miss? Randy never did anything. Ray was sitting
it was Seth. But what he did is he pushed his eyeball so hard into that step that somehow instead of it pushing back into his skull, it popped out of his head.
So
Makes no sense.
Got in to get out?
Something like that, yes. Yeah. You know what? There was no way of getting out of that match. There's nothing that they could have done. Exactly. That's exactly what it was like. There is nothing they could have done to avoid that disaster. I mean, Seth Rollins grabs the pliers. Now, I don't know about extracting eyeballs, but I would like to believe that a pliers and an eyeball is kind of slippery, and you really got to grab it tight to yank that thing out. Take a spoon. You know what I mean? Just scoop it out. It was so much easier. But yeah, it was a great physical match. Both guys.
Was it?
The match was good.
I was distracted by the commentary. They kept trying to make me believe somebody was going to lose an eye tonight, and I said, "You know what?
Because that was the gimmick of the match. Was the eyeball
lose an eye? It wasn't going to happen, and there was no way they could pull it off. And guess what? Whoops, they didn't pull it off. This was a joke of epic proportions. I hated every minute of it. I feel sorry for Seth Rollins. I feel sorry for Rey Mysterio. I feel sorry for me having had watched it.
Yeah, I understand you feeling that way. They painted themselves into a corner that they couldn't get out of. I mean, there was no way that no matter how great the special effect was going to be, it could have been Avatar level and it was still going to be awful. It was a bad idea creatively and, still Ray and Seth worked their ass off and, they did have a good match. The commentary didn't bother me as much. I know they're just doing their job, but I completely understand and you're justified in feeling the way you do because it was just a silly stipulation. But, I mean, that's where we're at in the business now. You got they did on NXT. They're building up to this ladder match for no reason that it needs to be a ladder match. They've done this so much. And like what Dave was talking about, Kofi took that good table spot. Guarantee you on Friday he's okay. If he comes out with even his ribs tape, I'll be surprised. That's just where we're at in the business now. The guys legitimately are beat the shit in the back, but they're told to come out smiling. Make sure you smile on the way to the ring. Yeah, but my ribs are hanging out. Don't worry about it. Just smile. It's ridiculous.
I was praying that Ray was not going to be on Raw Monday night. I was praying that we were not going to see him because if that would have been the case, I mean, come on. I mean, we're done. I mean, now everything is just fake and phony.
I just know that every match now, once a feud gets to a certain point, it's got to be eye for an eye.
Well, speaking of an eye for an eye, we appreciate all the eyes that are on this show tonight, watching us on Fight TV Live, watching us on YouTube, on Periscope, and also on Facebook Live. So if you haven't already, if you're watching on Facebook, share the show with your friends, your wrestling friends, and also follow us on Facebook so that you always get the updates from the Pro Wrestling Report. And if you're watching on YouTube, subscribe and turn those notifications on so that you always get told when we are live, especially here with the Super Show with Shane Hurricane Helms. I want to welcome a lot of new viewers who have joined us in the last few minutes here as we have talked about Extreme Rules. And good job, guys. We only went a minute long in that segment, so that was good.
We didn't even talk about the best match on the night.
Well, let's do that in a minute after I welcome our fans, Nathan Banks, Corey R. Taylor, several people joining us, and we appreciate you all joining us across all of our media channels and your comments as well. One question, actually, that Nathan Banks had was, should we see cinematic matches from time to time instead of every month? Nathan, take a look back at some of the shows we've done over the last few weeks. You'll see our answer to that. Generally speaking, the answer is no, but yes, but no, but yes, but it depends on.
It's just no. It's just no. Save it for 4 times a year. That's
well,
it.
if I remember properly, you hate them, Dave, and Shane, you understand them.
Yeah, some of them. I mean, if they're good, I don't care how often you do them. If they're good, that the swamp match wasn't good. So they got to fit the characters, and you got to know how to use those characters. I mean, anything can be done if it's done right. But it just
who was the guy? Who was the guy they torched? Just some random guy in the swamp.
I wish it was me. I saw this human being on fire, and I was like, I wish I was that guy. That's how bad it was. I was like, I wish that was me.
That was so terrible.
It was Johnny Storm.
Well, gentlemen, let's move on to our next.
Nothing, Dave Hiro.
I was going to say that was fantastic, but Damien wants to move us along all the time.
Damien never gets
2 minutes in.
Damien never gets these references
to talk about.
But we didn't even talk about Drew McIntyre and Dolph Ziggler, the best match of the night.
We had 6 minutes. You could have started with that.
Okay, well, Drew McIntyre and Dolph Ziggler had the best match of the night.
Great. Thank you for your review, David Hiro. Time to talk about NXT from last night. Keith Lee, big announcement to start the show. Keith Lee relinquishing the North American Championship, a tournament, a triple threat tournament. Series of triple threat matches will now determine what we do with that championship, what happens or wins that championship in the finals at the 30th, which I can't believe it's a 30th edition of TakeOver occurring August 22nd. The week after SummerSlam, I believe, which, by the way, today was announced officially to no longer be occurring in Boston at the TD, whatever it is, center. So NXT, we'll start with that. Then we'll move on to AEW. Shane, Keith Lee relinquishes the title. Do you think that was the right direction to go? And what do you think of the tournament to determine the new champion?
Yeah, I mean, I like the direction that they're going with that. I thought Keith Lee cut a good promo. He's a very interesting something about the way he talks, it's very evangelical, and I don't know. I catch myself really listening to him, and I get why he's losing. I mean, why he's dropping the title. I mean, didn't Ultimate Warrior give up the Intercontinental title when he won both belts? So, you can't defend both of them. I mean, I guess you could, but it seems like that would be tiresome. So he made the smart decision, and it's okay for the babyface to be smart. As far as the this tournament or whatever, they're having a bunch of 3 triple threats, and then that's going to lead to a ladder match. For me, I was like, why is there a ladder match? Why can't we have a wrestling tournament and the winner be the champion? I love tournaments. If you watch basketball, that's when all the drama happens. Once we get to the playoffs, baby, that's when you get the most drama. And you'll see maybe 2 guys from the Undisputed Era have to face off, because I've been waiting for them to kind of implode as it is. But that being said, they had a really great triple threat, last night. So I'm looking forward to see how it goes. I just don't understand why it had to be a ladder match. It just doesn't, but it's one of the things. Hey, we got to have a special stipulation for this match, so let's do a ladder match. And there we go.
Especially if that is going to be going up against AEW. Is that what you were saying, Damien? It's going to be on a Wednesday night. Is that correct?
No, it's a TakeOver special on August 22nd on the WWE Network. The matches leading up to it, I believe they will all be triple threat matchups, and they will occur over the course of the next several weeks.
That's the way I took it.
Bronson Reed looked fantastic last night.
I was surprised he won.
Didn't I tell you a couple weeks ago? I told y'all he's the guy.
Yeah.
There's something there.
Yeah, there is something there with him, and I think next week the triple threat between Finn Balor, Timothy Thatcher, and Dexter Loomis is going to be real interesting. Also, not that I'm a Timothy Thatcher guy, but
hey, Timothy Thatcher is fantastic. I thought the match last night on Impact on NXT was fantastic. You didn't like it?
That is the match people will change the channel for on. Is that one?
I changed to NXT because I'm a Thatcher fan. I like the style, and I thought that the pure wrestling contest they were having it entertained me. It's what I wanted. I had to get away from leg slaps for a little while.
What was on NXT when that was happening? Or on AEW when that was happening?
I can't answer that. I can't say this. Go ahead, Dave.
No. I mean, I think that Finn Balor is going to be the favorite in that match next week because I think they need Finn Balor in that ladder match because they're going to need some generals. They can't put a bunch of young guys in a ladder match. It'll be a complete disaster. But you put someone like Finn Balor in there, I think he can direct traffic fairly well.
I do want to talk, though, gentlemen, about Dexter Loomis because we've talked about him on this program before. I think it's absolutely fantastically awesome. But I actually said on today's edition of the PWR Today podcast with the man they call Meathead that Dexter Loomis has this mysterious presence, this mystique to him, if you will, that makes me buy more and more and more into the character. And I went as far as to compare the possibility of that intrigue and that mystique to the likes of a WCW later Sting or even a Kane or even an Undertaker, because he doesn't speak. He doesn't really react to anything. When you think about when Kane and Undertaker and the Crow version of the Sting all debuted, it was the same thing. There were no words. There was just actions. Dexter Loomis has the same thing. It's just actions, and his actions are meaningful and deliberate. I think there's tremendous upside in Dexter Loomis. Shane, you've worked with him. You know him. What do you think?
Yeah, I think, there's some pretty big names you linked him there with. So there's some big shoes to fill. There's definitely something there. I still can't quite wrap my head around what he is in terms of character. You can't just say somebody's odd and that explains it. That doesn't do it for me. So he's still got a ways to go. And keep in mind, I wasn't quite the Hurricane right away. It takes a while to create a character and to make that personality in ring match your personality outside of the ring. And those are the characters that work the best. When your character outside of the ring complements how you wrestle inside the ring. So it's going to take a while. This weird, like when he did that nip up, that to me, that just seemed odd during the match. He just does this nip up, and it might seem like I'm being nitpicky there, but like you got this guy that's supposed to be this sociopath, and like I don't know if he's quite a serial killer, but that's how he comes off, and that's how they're presenting him. And he's got this submission where he kind of strangles you to death, and then just during the middle of the match, he just does this weird nip up, and I'm just like, man, that's kind of odd. He's going to have to find himself, but there's definitely money to be made with him there. If you can captivate the screen with just a blank stare like that says something. So yeah, I agree there's something there.
And the amazing thing is about Dexter Loomis is his hair never gets messed up. Amazing hair. Yes, it is. It's fantastic. Yeah.
As far as serial killers go, I think he has the best hair.
Well, I've never compared that before. I will take your word on it. You
only got a couple.
Well, it depends on what he is. It depends on what he is, and I appreciate if you guys can't answer this because I understand it's difficult. But
Ted Bundy kind of had the curls,
but Jeffrey Dahmer was all over the place.
Yeah, not a Dahmer guy when it comes to hair.
No, neither.
How about you, Damien? Any serial killer hairstyles?
I was trying to ask a simple question. You guys were cutting me off talking about Ted Bundy, so I don't know how to interpret that. But my question is, and I really want your serious answer to this, is person, woman, man, camera, TV.
But you got to say it again 20 minutes from now.
Yeah. You're ready to run the country, apparently. That's all it takes.
I'm afraid what will happen if I were to run the country, and after what happened last time, someone like me ran the country, and what we did after, what will happen after this time?
Someone like me? What do you mean?
Yeah, a man a man over the age of 35, because that's the qualification.
Oh. Well, what? Okay, let's say you somehow run the country. What positions are you going to give Shane and I here?
Oh, this is great. So, yes, Shane Helms, you would be you'd be my urban economic advisor.
Okay.
Could I be Secretary of Education?
David Hiro, you would be the press secretary, actually.
That's fantastic. Yes.
Because I've never met anybody who could spin crap as well as you could spin crap. And as a wrestling promoter, I mean, hell, you'd be great at it.
That's what we do. That's what we do. Yes. I love it. So,
all right.
Shane, get ready on your urban stuff, okay?
Yeah, I'll have to get up to date on that. I'll have to do some research.
You all went off on a tangent. I want to address some of the comments coming in here as we are live on Fight TV on Thursday, July 23rd. Jamie Weisner, look back at the archive of the show later. We spent the first 40 minutes talking about Impact. We're done with that for now. But check out. You may have tuned in late. I understand.
Rewind.
You know more about NXT. All I really wanted to talk about was Dexter Loomis and the matchup or the announcement.
We got to talk about Robert Stone.
Oh my God!
Is it okay? Is he better?
Robert Stone again. At week after week after week has been nothing short of solid entertainment goodness. The yelping scream as he fell off the ring apron in the cam walker. And Robbie, if you're watching this, if you need help walking in a cam walker, you can contact Shane or myself. We both have tons of experience in that. But he's just great. He's fantastic. And thank God he's finding a way to still be a star when they're not truly using him as a star.
But he is a star.
Yeah, he's still in the scenes, and that's just what's happening. He's still in the scenes. You had that match, and it was a good match. And I forget now who Shotzi Blackwell, she was in it, right? So she runs over him again. This is completely hysterical. They had Mercedes came out. I kind of felt they stepped on the comedic scene there too much. I don't think we needed that. I think that Mercedes thing that happened later on could have happened without her coming in and kicking the girl in the face. I don't think we even needed that whatsoever. Because Robbie was just, man, he was still in that moment. We want to see more of that. And then it kind of, it's just one pop stepped on the other. And then once Mercedes left, you go back to Robbie and you want to laugh again, but it's not quite there. So that part was a little odd. But then at the end, when he's having that back and forth with Mercedes, he really steals every scene he's in. And I hope he is watching it because he's killing it.
All right, guys, that's NXT. Anything else? Any final parting comments on NXT last night?
I thought the at the end of that show, the story with Karrion Kross.
Oh my gosh, yes.
That was the best. That was the best storyline of the week. Just what he was doing to D-Jack. With Keith Lee watching, man, it was Drago and Apollo Creed. That's exactly what I thought about, with Apollo Creed going, don't throw the towel, and man, I just thought that was shot so well from a cinematic standpoint of cameras and stuff like that. So great job to the production team. I would have liked to seen Keith have a little bit more concern for D-Jack, but it was still good. He didn't go over the top at the end. And I just thought, man, that was just expertly done. I love that angle.
It was borderline making you uncomfortable, knowing that D-Jack was out and still just getting pounded in the face. And Keith Lee is sitting there. And if you take Randy Orton and Edge out of the equation, this is the first time in a long time you actually had real emotion, real fear, real pain, real heat involved in anything. And this is no longer, when this match happens, it is no longer for the NXT championship, even though that's the prize to be won. It is now personal, and it's going to be a fight. And I think that is the hook, and that's one of Shane's favorite words, the hook. What's the hook? That's the hook that lets them not make it a title match, where it's a fight where the focus is on the fight, not the title. So this isn't as people say, a transitional title match to Killer Cross. I don't think it is. I think that Keith Lee and Killer Cross are going to fight and beat each other up to then have a rematch down the road towards Survivor Series.
Yeah, and since I shit on WWE creative so much earlier with the eye for an eye and the swamp match, this right here made me forget all about that. That's how well done this was. This was the angle of the week. It was the storyline of the week, and man, like I went back and watched that a couple times. Just that last couple minutes. I mean, just the way the little things when Karrion Kross was just trapping D-Jack's arms down and just hitting him, and D-Jack was fighting back just enough to let you know that he's awake, but he's in no condition to really fight this animal off of him. It was just well done on everybody's part. So yeah, man, my hats off to everybody involved in that. That was just super well done. That's how it's done. And Dave talking about emotion. That's what it's about. When you can get in here, people will never forget that.
Karrion Kross, I don't think he's ever been better. At least he was laser focused last night.
Well, he ain't been around that long.
But I'm saying from Lucha Underground to Impact Wrestling to the Indies, he was so believable. You legitimately felt like he was going to kill D-Jack last night.
Yeah, it was just the physicality there. And D-Jack did good too. You see, the focus on this is so much on Keith Lee and Karrion Kross that we forget how well and how great of a job D-Jack did. He really earned some points for himself last night as well. And I hope that creative saw that.
When they smashed his head into the stairs, I'm like, okay, there's the finish. Now it's done. And then when they weren't done, I'm like, oh, they're going to ruin this. This is how it should end. Wow, they took it to a different level. Way better than I thought it was going to be. Yeah,
it was so well done.
Well, gentlemen, let's continue the conversation. Let's move on and talk about the other Wednesday night show. That was AEW Dynamite on TNT. They came out with a huge match to start again, as they did last week. It was for the TNT Championship. Cody in the open challenge. Now, this could have been anybody. A lot of people expected anybody, but I'm not sure that they expected to get Eddie Kingston, who came out with a rip-roaring promo on Cody and his lineage and his privileges, and also against Arn Anderson. So a match where some heat was made early on prior to starting, and then a match that was very intense that also included thumbtacks, which seemed a little early for me, even though they tried to set it up at the beginning. But a great opener, a surprise opponent in the open challenge for Cody. Dave, what did you think of the opening matchup on Dynamite just last night?
You know what? I thought it was great. Good for Eddie Kingston to be given that platform to show the world what he can do. Twitter wasn't happy in the beginning. They were all hoping for a Zack Ryder or a Rusev or somebody else that wasn't Eddie Kingston. And I think that those wrestling fans are forgetting what AEW was built on. At one point, 90% of that AEW roster was guys off the indies that never had any mainstream clout or mainstream TV exposure. Eddie Kingston has never truly had that either. So he was a guy from the indies. And he came out there, he cut a promo of promos. You made you believe that he was there to fight. He made fun of Arn. He went after Cody. And those two went they were just fighting, and it was all over the place.
Felt real.
It was physical. It did. And it was a sense of urgency. You really felt that Eddie Kingston was fighting for a title, and if not a title, for a job. And surprised everybody when the thumbtacks came out. But that shows you that Cody is adding another layer, another edge to his character by now going that route and taking a beating and still winning. I just thought it was good business all around. People are still today talking about Eddie Kingston showing up on AEW.
Shane, what do you say?
Yeah, I'm agree with most of that. The only thing that was different on my timeline was people, and I mean, we don't all follow the same people, but people on my timeline were loving some Eddie Kingston, me specifically. And when he was in TNA, I had to pitch for him to just let him talk. And we're creative at the time, and I'll leave the names out of who it was, but I was like, just give him a microphone and you'll see. And I just knew that. That's how good he is on the microphone. So him giving that opportunity, came out, he was killing it. there were times during that match where I was like, man, Eddie might actually win this, and I predicted from the giddy up that Cody was going to hold this championship for a while, but here we are, only a couple matches in. I'm like, man, Eddie might be the one. And so I'm so glad, they did such a great job. Cody working his ass off. He made a star in one match out of Eddie Kingston, elevated a star in Eddie Kingston, and came out himself looking good as well. It was just like Dave said, it was good business all, in every single aspect that you can judge that in. It was good business, and AEW came out swinging. And it's no surprise that they ended up winning the ratings war, which I hate talking about that, but it's no surprise that they won. They came out all guns a-blazing last night and didn't let up.
But you know what I'll say, Shane, and I think you made this point last week, Dave. They came out balls blazing, guns slinging, but they also are doing the picture-in-picture gimmick. They're also doing the contests, show your signs on social media. They're also doing giveaways during the commercials. There was a sense of urgency during the show. They were actually live. Perhaps if they weren't, they did a great job making me think they were. But when you look at back and forth,
it should be like that every week. I want them to be urgent.
It was the old like Monday Night Wars where there was a sense of urgency, and they do a great job, a tremendous job, not necessarily just with what's in the ring, but they're telling us what's next, what's to come. They're doing that not just once to set the show, to frame the show. They're doing it all night long. They're telling us what to look for. They're telling a story over the course of that episode, which keeps the episode connected and keeps you from wanting to turn the channel. And they may have strategically done it, where when you did have the opportunity to turn the channel, there was nothing there that you actually wanted to see. And I'm not knocking anything on NXT. I'm just saying their timing may have been in such a way that any chance you had to slip away, they still had you.
And I hope NXT takes it personal. They should. Like for me, when I heard about this Wednesday Night War was going to happen, and keep in mind I was still with WWE at the time, I was of the mindset, listen, I ain't going to war, I'm going to work. This is my job, and I have friends on both sides. But now that as an outsider looking in, I really feel they should go to war, because that was what made the Monday Night War so exciting back then. Because these two companies really did compete. They were competing for this top spot. And the people in the company should take it personal, because I can tell you, when we finally lost, WCW, like it was my fault or anything, but when we were balled out, when we came, they didn't want us there. They did take it personal. It was personal to them. They didn't want us there. Mm-hmm. So I feel like NXT, they should take it personal. Hey, we got our ass stomped last night. We got to figure something out. And there was a match on NXT which, for me, was not captivating. I know it was for you, Damian. I'm not going to point out the one. You already said it was. But to me, that was a channel changer. And I think a lot of people changed the channel last night. But you got to keep that momentum rolling. You got to keep it up. Take it personal, guys. This is a war. This is a war.
Who would have thought that the young upstart CEOs would be out-thinking, out-dueling Titan Towers? Because that's what's happening right now. I mean, last night, Damian, like you said, they had the contest during the commercial break.
Maybe you don't know where all these ideas are coming from. So you got to be careful about giving all the credit and all the blame on one person. You don't know where all these ideas are coming from. Keep in mind, Jericho is there. Jericho is not young.
Oh, right. But and when I say that, and when I say that, I'm saying Tony Khan, Chris Jericho, Cody, those guys, because Chris Jericho has his fingerprints all over this, because he wouldn't be investing this much time and effort if he didn't have some type of creative control on that show as well.
And what I was trying to say was, too, even though he's not a spring chicken, so I only said that because you mentioned the whoever you're talking about being young. Jericho's got all of these years, and he's still just as creative as ever. He's still got his finger on that creative pulse. So, I mean, you just got to be careful who you give credit and blame to in these situations. Vince isn't to blame for everything bad there.
No.
And he can't take credit for everything good. But he's like the pitcher or the quarterback. They get all the credit and take all the blame.
Last night for me watching, it was like it took me back to going back and forth between Raw and Nitro.
Yep.
Because I was wondering who was going to show up on AEW. Because that's been the vibe. Hey, who's next? Who's going to pop up next? And it's like it was weird how eerie and how similar that felt for me last night.
And
What are you doing?
even more so, Impact. Sorry to cut you off, Damien. This will be short. Eddie Edwards, his promo about how he's going to be a fighting champion and he's going to defend week after week after week. That's the Cody angle. So it's having an effect. AEW is affecting the business.
You know, we'll get more back. We'll get back to more of Dynamite in a moment. But to the point you all are making, I don't know if you caught the post show, the after show with Jim Ross, Taz, and Excalibur, but they had some very, I think, true comments about WWE's problem, which is AEW, and JR said, we say their name. We say the names of their talents. We talk about them existing. We're not arrogant and ignorant about their existence. And that is the difference. WWE plays the ignorance game. They don't exist. We're never going to mention them. They are not competition, because every time they talk about it in an earnings call, they say every entertainment entity is competition. So it's an interesting dynamic, because what Jericho has done, to the point you guys have made, we talked last week about him billing himself the demo god. It's brilliant. What he's done now is being able to say that they're doing better in the ratings without talking about the ratings, because now we're talking about the demo god. And I think he said on a tweet that said 0.32 hashtag demo god. That's all you need now. He's changed the narrative in such a way that works great for AEW. It's fantastic.
Yep.
And he's got some great merch out of it too.
Yeah,
the best. He's
well,
the best
let's
right now.
continue talking about the show last night, and MJF. I mean, Shane, I'm going to throw this one to you. I mean, he is electricity on that microphone, and he delivered again on Impact last night. I'm sorry, AEW last night.
Without pointing names, I think there's a couple of talents on Impact and some talents on NXT that should watch MJF's promo, because it doesn't necessarily matter if I believe what he's saying, but I believe that he believes it. Yeah, and that is the key to a good promo. I saw promos on Impact and I saw promos on NXT where I didn't believe a damn word they were saying. Not one syllable that came out of their mouth. MJF comes out there, and from the start to finish, I believe that he believes it. And that's all the difference in the world. He was fantastic. That whole segment was great. It was great. It actually had me bite. I bit a little bit on one of the false finishes that this kid might be getting upset.
Same here. Me too.
His finish, when you held him down and he's like, admit that I'm undefeated. And then the guy admitted it. And then you had the schoolboy, which is the greatest finish of all time. You had the schoolboy. I was like, oh shit! But he kicked out, and then he has a devastating finish. He didn't use the big man, which I'm glad. They're kind of using him a little too much at some point. Devastating finish. That segment right there was just money, and so well done in terms of character development for MJF, who already is super confident in his character.
And what did he do after, Shane? What did he do after, Dave? He somewhat angrily just walked out, just left. There was no posing. There was no, hey, I beat him, I won. He showed the vulnerability that he knew had been shown when he got too cocky in the ring and almost lost. It was a subtlety that was a blazing, obvious thing as well, which is what wrestling really is at its core, right? You need to be able to look at it and say, oh, I get this. It makes sense. This is why everything happened. From the moment MJF came out to the moment MJF left, in that contest, and Griff Garrison, I guess, gets some credit too, because he did a great job. In that match, though, everything made every damn bit of sense from beginning to end of that segment.
They told the story. Who would have thought, how psychology could work in a match?
So. And what do we talk about, Dave? Somebody you like and somebody you hate. That will always be the best story.
Well, after that, we did see a Falls Count Anywhere. And JR made a point when he said, we mean anywhere, folks. A Falls Count Anywhere match between the Young Bucks and the Butcher. And Dave, this is for you, the Butcher and the Blade. Now, this one would start with the Butcher and the Blade in the kitchen, butching and blading. I loved it. And then the Young Bucks would step in, step up. The match would start. This one was all over the place. I thought Butcher and the Blade had a tremendous night against the Young Bucks. David Hiro, what do you say?
You know what? I said it last night. Butcher and Blade, put the tag belts on them. They are the APA for AEW. It's like they are Farouk and they are Bradshaw. They are just two guys that like to fight, and they have been able to mesh with pretty much every tag team they've been in the ring with. They've had solid matches, and it's not just because they've been in the ring with FTR or the Lucha Brothers or now with the Young Bucks. They got to be good dance partners also for these matches to be good, and they've been fantastic. I never thought I would become fans of the Butcher and the Baker, but that's exactly what they are.
Blade.
The Blade, and I look forward to them eventually being the AEW World Tag Team Champions.
Shane, one of our viewers by the name of Victor Pinchef says at least Butcher and the Blade washed their hands before taking on the Young Bucks, which they actually did. Hashtag wash your hands. They
gotta respect that.
Again, subtleties and the details, they matter, and they're a focus of AEW.
Yeah, that was a good match. Butcher and the Blade look good in losing. Young Bucks look good in winning. And I said that earlier. I forget what we were talking about. But, yes, and the high risk, that double finish at the end was just incredible. Young Bucks look great. Butcher and Blade look great. Young Bucks pulled them up to a level. They pulled the Butcher and the Blade up. But the Butcher and Blade, like Dave said, they had to be willing to rise and capable to rise to that level. And they did. They looked great. Both teams looked great. That was another solid segment. So it's one or two segments, actually.
It's somewhere within this, and we'll move on from this match, but somewhere within this, we had Tony Schiavone go backstage. It might have been after this match with Dr. Britt Baker. And hey, I know, and I've been talking good about her for a long time. This is fantastic. The whole thing with I don't know what her name is because Britt calls her
Rebel. It's Rebel.
Is it Rebel or is it Rebel or whatever it was?
It's Rebel. You bought her wings in Chicago, remember?
I do. I know exactly. Yes. If you watch the show, maybe you're watching NXT at the time. They made a big deal about that. So how tremendous is Dr. Britt Baker?
Yeah, this is great. It's a great character development, great personality, especially for somebody who's injured right now. That's just great use of an already existing character to, at least have them on the show. But this isn't at least have them on the show. This is actually doing something really good. So, yeah, great. That's just another great segment, great character. And the Rebel joke, the Rebel Reby joke is really funny because Rebby Hardy hates being called Reby. And if you call her Reby, you run the risk of getting cut. And so that's why I really laugh at the Reby comment.
Wait, is it cut or slice? Because she seems like she advances right to slicing.
Either way. There's going to be a bloodletting going on.
Britt Baker is used on TV more than just about anybody else on the roster. With the exception of Cody or Jericho, she is on every week,
and
much like they are. So she's getting great TV time. The role model, I think, is fantastic gimmick, even though Bayley now has the role model also on SmackDown.
So who's doing it better?
Britt Baker's doing it way better.
Britt Baker.
This too goes back to what I was saying about delivery. Just her delivery is just fantastic. Yeah. And, Bayley is a great wrestler, but promo wise, Britt Baker is just, she's nailing her promos.
But I don't want to sound too markish, but it's more believable.
It's too late for that.
Britt Baker is great. Britt Baker's situation, it's real. She's really injured. She really got injured in a match. All of this stuff makes so much sense. I mean, like the comment about
it does, but how often does somebody get injured and you just take them off TV?
Exactly.
All the time.
Yeah. I actually put up a picture of my broken nose before my match with Benoit. They just took me off TV for a couple of weeks and didn't mention me until I came back.
Yep.
You got this person with a injury. She's on there. She's staying in character, and it's so good, and it's so easy to do with a character that can pull it off and a personality like Britt Baker.
Maybe because Britt Baker has been so miserable, maybe that's why Adam Cole snapped this morning.
You could be on to something. This might be a little cross promotion here.
Yeah. How about that? Maybe it's because of Britt Baker, Adam Cole snapped. I forgot what the guy's name is.
Pat McAfee.
Pat McAfee.
Yes, on the Pat McAfee show. Who would have thought Adam Cole would get that heated and that hot where he's dropping F-bombs?
Work or shoot.
Off the set.
Work or shoot.
Oh, there's no way. There's no way that is a shoot. They are going to be building for a Pat McAfee Adam Cole match towards that takeover, which I think is brilliant because right now you can't put Adam Cole in any title match. You can't put him in that North American thing. put him in something where he's off the path with everybody else, and him and Pat McAfee can have their fight.
That was well done. It was very well done. Real quick, and not to gloss over it, but we have about 6 minutes left in our TV time remaining. Okay. Diamante versus Ivelisse and a female.
Ivelisse. Ivelisse.
Did I say Ivelisse? That's how we say it.
Yes.
in Great Kool-Aid Land.
Yeah, that was a good match. It was hard hitting. Not really much else to say. It was one of those matches that didn't have a lot of from an observer. I didn't have any emotional investment in that match other than I like both of those talents. That was it. So, I mean, it's one of those matches that was kind of here or there. I'd much rather talk about Jericho and Hager against the Jurassic Express.
We'll get there. And
you said we got 6 minutes, so I'm just trying to hurry it up, trying to make you happy.
I think I might need to call on demand and get additional satellite time because to talk about that match, we're going to need a bit more. But Dave, I want to get your thoughts on what you thought or had mentioned a couple of weeks ago hadn't happened as much as you thought maybe it should, and that was a singles match with Adam Page, who took on Alan Angels. What did you think?
I thought that was Sami Zayn under a hood. I'm not going to lie. Minus that tattoos, I'm like, just the same build, same beard, the whole thing. To me, the match was a waste of time because it wasn't competitive for Adam Page. And then what drove me nuts is I get it. He's the beer drinking, tough guy, son of a gun. But he turned his back on 5 or 6 heels and didn't care they were there. It's like, why didn't the heels just jump him right away? So that I wasn't a big fan of. But I mean, Adam Page is going to be a star. Well, he is a star. He's going to be a huge star for AEW. But that whole thing just didn't make a whole lot of sense to me. I was not surprised at all that FTR came down to make the save. I thought it was fantastic. It's like, what is Kenny Omega doing that he's not their first guy down to the ring? It's just when people say wrestling is too predictable, this right here is a prime example of how predictable it's going to be.
Dave, I understand. I agree with you about Kenny Omega and that what I hated the most was that after he got beat by the Dark Order when he was getting beat on, and once he got saved, he was just right up like, hey, I didn't just get my ass kicked by a couple guys. That selling could have been a little bit better there, if you want. And, I don't know, I'm just really big on selling, but I don't mind highlighting Page whatsoever, give him a win. This was just odd booking. When you're the tag team champions, for me, it's always weird to see a tag team champions taking a singles match. Like if you value those championships, if you really, and you should, I've talked about this, I've been blue in the bandana. If you value those championships, why are you out taking this singles match? To what end? To what end does that benefit? Like if this is supposed to be an AEW, it's supposed to be the reality-based show. To what end does that benefit Adam Page to be taking a singles match with somebody that none of us know? That doesn't make any sense. It's a good little win. The FTR coming down to save him. I just wish that whole thing with the Dark Order could have happened in a little bit less obvious way. To highlight what Dave was saying, but it's just so obvious. But it wasn't. I mean, I didn't hate it. It just could have been done a little bit better.
A good show, but not every segment in the show can be great, right? But one segment that was great was the main event, if you will. And again, sense of urgency, clear build. We were going somewhere from the beginning of the episode to the end of the episode, and where we were going was the cliffhanger from last week's ending of the show, and it was the matchup between Chris Jericho and Jake Hager teaming up to take on Jurassic Express. You knew there would be some Orange Cassidy play. You knew that we would have Jericho talking, and talk he did, still wearing the same jacket, which I thought back to Jim Cornette's bloody white jacket from the 80s or 90s when Paul Heyman had bloodied him on an episode of Saturday Night, I believe it was. Just brilliance from the Inner Circle and Chris Jericho and Jake Hager. We would see more brilliance in a big return after the match to end the show. But man, how good was the build to this match? But did the match itself live up to the expectations? And that's a pointed question. I should probably start. I'm not even going to frame it. Jump ball. Whoever wants to start can start.
Oh, I'll let Shane take this one to start. By all means,
Probably.
Please go ahead.
The match was okay. You know, Jericho looked great. I thought Hager looked.
Did he?
Yeah, I think so. Considering what he was in there with, you can't remember. You're not in there by yourself.
Okay, you're talking about his performance, not his physical appearance. Okay.
Yeah, I ain't gonna rag on his physical appearance, but I thought he looked great in the performance. I thought Hager looked really strong. There's a lot of little things that Hager did last night that I really like. Jungle Boy to me shines in every segment he's in. You know, from a physicality standpoint, haven't really seen him talk enough to still get an idea of who he is or why he's Jungle Boy. We've talked about that in the past, but when he's in the ring in terms of wrestling and performance, man, he impresses every time. Luchasaurus is
the graphics explained to me why he's Jungle Boy last night. When they were coming to the ring, you had the Jurassic Park kind of logo, and then you had Luchasaurus and you had Jungle Boy, and I'm like, oh, it all connects. But I will say this. I don't even know if until last night I realized how great Jungle Boy was.
The last 2 weeks, you need to go back and check him out because he's putting in some really good performance. Strangely enough, the weakest performing that match was Luchasaurus, but there's an upside to him still. You know, there's something fire. He's missing fire, so he's definitely not a fire breathing dragon right now.
He's a dinosaur. 65 million years old.
Yeah, with the right guys and the right agents and producers, he can get there because there is something there. There was a time in the match when Jungle Boy selling and it looked like Luchasaurus didn't give a shit what was going on and
didn't care at all.
See his face. So and he needs to trust me on this as a guy that wore a mask and made a lot more money than Luchasaurus has made wearing a mask. You got to tell a story with your body if they can't see your face. So if I just see you over there like that, your body language tells me you don't give a shit about this match, or more importantly, your tag team partner that's sitting there getting beat up by Chris Jericho, one of the biggest stars in the business, and an undefeated MMA fighter and former WWE champion or WWE World Heavyweight Champion, whichever championship he won over there, Hager.
Yeah.
He's going to get murdered. You got to care. If you don't care, why am I the viewer? Why am I going to care if you don't? And I've been in there with partners while I'm in there selling, and I'll look over there, and they're not working that apron. And we'll have a discussion in the back. And sometimes it's been heated. I'm like, hey, if you want to go in there and get your ass kicked for 5 minutes, I'll work the apron, and I'll get this crowd going. I've had those conversations. I said, I don't want to sit there and be bumping my ass off and look over there, and you just looking at me like you don't know what's happening. Hate that. You can tell I'm getting heated. I was getting heated. I'm like,
I feel the heat.
And I get heated because I know how easy it is to just work that apron. You'll blow yourself up. Watch Robert Gibson. Watch him walk up and down that apron going crazy. Reaching for that tag. Reaching for it. Go ahead, Dave.
The Undertaker would do that.
Yeah.
If you watch the Undertaker would go nuts on the apron. Luchasaurus was like someone hit him with a tranquilizer dart. He just laid there and
well, how else you going to beat a dinosaur?
Valid.
But just, and for me, that was my big disconnect. When you have just a larger than life personality in Chris Jericho, and you have a guy that could legitimately snap your ankle in Jake Hager, and then they are pounding on Jungle Boy, making him look like a star to get the crowd to want to cheer for him, and you look over and you see a sleeping dinosaur, not even trying to get in the match, not even fully extending out to try to reach for the tag. Well, damn, if your tag partner doesn't care about you, why would I? Exactly. And then when he finally did get in, slow motion. I don't want to see a guy 6'5", 6'6", just throw kicks, throw punches, throw forearms, throw elbows. Your little buddy was getting his ass handed to him. Defend his honor and fight. And that's not what he does. And to the point about producers, we know the producers and agents that are there. You got a guy like Billy Gunn. He knows how to wrestle big, right? Mm-hmm. Come on. Listen to Billy Gunn.
Well, let me ask you guys this, because I think Luchasaurus, he has a tremendous presence. He has a tremendous in-ring presence. He's got a great physical look.
And a great gimmick. Gimmick's amazing.
It is tremendous. Is he wrestling the wrong style? because it's a lot of big kicks. He's, doing not high flying moves necessarily, but it seemed like a lot of stuff was it. I'm not saying it was clumsy. It came off as clumsy because his partner can do it so fluidly, and it looks better because he's smaller. Should there be a different strategy employed?
He just doesn't. I don't want to say he needs to wrestle like a big guy per se, because I don't want to paint him into that corner.
Yeah.
But I'm reminded of, and I know we talked about this either on the phone or on the show. He reminds me of Sean O'Hare.
Yes.
And in a way, Sean used to love doing all this weird karate shit. He was convinced that this karate shit was going to be a game changer. And I would tell him, dude, nobody gives a shit. Nobody cares about you doing karate. Like, you look like Goldberg. Go out there and do that. Look how over he is. And it couldn't click. He wasn't getting it up here. And I hope that's not where Luchasaurus is, because there's sometimes when he just wants to do some weird kick. And I'm like, dude, just suplex this guy. Knock his head off. Just do something.
Yeah.
So
there's nothing he does that's terrifying. That's like, oh my God, you know what I mean? He doesn't have that signature set of moves that you are deathly afraid of, that you don't want to see him hit you with.
I'd be afraid of him kicks.
That's what we're missing from him is fear. There needs to be something from him that looks like it kills people, that looks like it's going to, he's supposed to be, is he a T-Rex or a Brontosaurus? Because one of those was a meat eater and one of them ate leaves. What is he out there to do? Is he out there to eat people, or does he want to, chew on some tree branches? Because that's what he looked like he was doing in the corner for that tag. He looked like Dino from the Flintstones, and I want T-Rex in there.
I want to be clear on a couple things here, okay? Because we get accused of things sometimes on this program. First thing I want to be clear on is, as much as we just praised and will continue to praise as we talk about how Dynamite ended, praise AEW this week because they had the better show on Wednesday night. Don't forget that we also said Slammiversary and Impact Wrestling had a fantastic effort this week as well.
Yes.
Don't forget that. And also, in this instance, this is not a knock in any way, shape, or form, nor has any other conversation been on any of the talents. But Luchasaurus, Dave, you booked him. He was part of your show last December, and he got amazing and resounding, if not one of the biggest reactions of the night in Waukesha, Wisconsin. He's a star. There's no doubt about it. And
I teamed with him in Ring of Honor. I know there's something there.
Yeah.
There's something there, but just sometimes, it takes a while to get it out. And that's okay. It's okay if it doesn't happen there. Remember, Stunning Steve Austin was around for a long time and nobody gave a shit. And then he became Stone Cold. So he can get there without a doubt. He can get there. And if he becomes terrifying, like we just talked about, that could be you could be talking AEW World Championship material.
Yeah.
With Luchasaurus.
Yep. Well, also in that matchup, and it was what we expected to see at the end with Orange Cassidy coming out, obviously, but that was before. It was before we would see the big reveal and the big return of the endorsed member of the Nelson family, Sammy Guevara, back from his 60-day suspension from AEW.
It was 30 days, please.
It was I think it was announced as a 60.
It doesn't matter. He's back, and you're happy about it.
Sammy Guevara, look, there are some standout stars. We talked about a lot of them tonight across all the companies. Ricky Starks, Sammy Guevara, Darby Allin, who I think Ricky damn near killed when he came out and instructed.
Yeah, oh my God. I thought he killed him too.
If I'm Darby Allin, I'm pissed. You know that hurt.
Brian Cage. The list goes on and on and on.
And he did it in loafers. Like, you gonna kick my ass in loafers?
And they didn't come off. Even though he got in the ring. Explosive action and energy. AEW. So here's a question, and maybe we'll save this to discuss further next week, but I think it's a valid question as we praise AEW, as we praise TNA. Is it because Impact Wrestling? Is it because these talents, these stories, these people are newer to us on these platforms, and we're still excited because it's not the same old, no knock, it's not the same old Randy Orton, it's not the same old Big Show, it's not the same old Sheamus, Jeff Hardy, whoever it may be. These are still relatively new talents, new stars, new stories, new everything, and we haven't had a chance to get sick of them yet. I'm going to put that question out there. we'll want to ask you watching us to comment in the comment section, and we'll discuss your comments next week. And I want to hear your opinion of that next week. So that means remind me to ask you again, because I'll forget. You know how that goes.
Well,
but
then I better take notes.
Yeah,
question,
Dave. But Orange Cassidy, Sammy Guevara, your thoughts on how Dynamite ended and the show overall. We'll start with you, Dave, since you threw to Shane on the Luchasaurus conversation.
You know, I think it's very interesting how Chris Jericho has taken a strong liking to an Orange Cassidy, to a Sammy Guevara, and now to a Jungle Boy. It's almost like when Ric Flair took Sting under his wing. He's getting these three guys ready to be that next generation of stars for AEW. And obviously those are the ones that he's handpicked. And it's going to be very interesting to see. And you know what? I thought the show ended flat just because there was really nothing that happened with Orange Cassidy and the best friends. And now it's going to be a 10-man tag with Orange Cassidy, best friends. And now we got to watch Luchasaurus and Jungle Boy again against the Inner Circle. Gonna be interesting. Didn't end as hot as I would have liked it to, but they still got their business across.
Interesting. And now I would converse that and say, converse, is that a word? I would counter that and say it ended tremendously hot because you had Orange Cassidy, the best friends, come in and clear the ring of the Inner Circle, who then had to, went to their spot out in the audience. You had the stare down, if you will, and the flip off to end the show. I thought it ended tremendously strong, but we each have our own opinion. Let's find out what Shane thought. Shane, what did you think?
I thought it was a good ending. Of the two shows, NXT had the better ending. Of the overall shows, I thought AEW put on a much better Wednesday night product. So they do. I mean, the whole Sammy Guevara return, I really thought that was Serpentico.
Hey,
am I the only one? And here's the thing. Let me throw this at you because I know him. I know him on a personal level. I was like, oh, man, he's going to get a shot. I was really happy for him. and then it was a moment I was like, man, he looks a little bigger. Like, there was that moment, but it reminded me of when DDP was La Parka, and I'd never caught on it at all until he took off the mask, because I've always caught it. Every time somebody else was under the hood of a masked character, I've always picked it out. The first time I ever did not was when DDP did it. And the other night and then even when he went and did the shooting star, I was like, man, he's trying to make a heel moment. You ain't gonna make a heel moment doing no impressive ass shooting star. Ain't nobody gonna boo that. Even to that point, I still thought it was. And then he took the mask off, and I was like, I'm a mark. I'm a mark. And I love that. You can get me. I'll take my hat off to you.
Yep.
So
we got the text last night from Damien. We got the text from Damien, and I thought you were kidding when you said, "Oh, it looks like Sammy Guevara." Whoops.
Yeah, who knew? Because
when did you say that?
It was when he was standing in the ring, and I'm like, wait a minute. It was maybe 30 seconds before he took the mask off, and I'm like, that looks like Sammy. But in my mind, it couldn't be Sammy because Sammy wasn't back yet. But now Sammy's back.
Sammy wasn't in my mind whatsoever. They've done a good job about not mentioning him, and to the point where I forgot about him. Mm-hmm. And two, like I said, for me, a big part was because I know Serpentico, and I was happy for him. I was like, man, that's my little buddy. I was like, oh yeah, good job, man, good job. That was like legit, like almost like Eddie Kingston, because they gave Eddie, my buddy, a shot earlier. I was like, oh yeah, that's my buddy. Wait a minute, that ain't him. Dang. That was so
then
well
it felt
done.
like Damien. Then it felt like Damien afterwards. Yeah.
Oh, please, Dave, come on. You knew that was Sammy, right? The whole time. You're right.
Of course I did.
Sure you did. Well, look, fans, you all knew, or you all said what you thought was, well, the show you watched more, not necessarily that it was better or worse. And how about a shellacking this week in the ratings? After NXT wins for the Great American Bash, AEW gets the win last week by a slimmer, not a substantial margin as they did just this last night. AEW pulling in 845,000 viewers to NXT's 615,000 viewers. AEW seeing an increase of about 60,000 viewers week over week, and NXT seeing a decrease of about 15,000 viewers week over week. Now, as we have these rating conversations, I think the head-to-head number matters, but the week over week numbers matter more. And if we want to see how much those week over week numbers matter, we'd be talking about the Raw ratings, but we ain't even going to smear that right now. So AEW, more viewers watched last night. I think, again, it's that sense of urgency, clear pace, continuity of stories from week to week, a 2-hour show. Wait a minute. NXT has all that as well. It's going to go back and forth, right? And this week, NXT
but
had more viewers.
Why should there even be a sense of urgency? It should be a good show every week. I hate that we even feel that it should be. I think we've been lulled into a little sense of less than stellar booking. And that's what I hope that this war, and that now more than ever, that's what I want it to be. I hope they do. I hope it is a sense of urgency, and that we get shows like last night. Now, we need them every week. The fans deserve. You deserve a show like that. And keep in mind, you're going to have rebuilding weeks. Yeah. You're going to have to. Not every chapter of a book can you have a nuclear explosion. There has to be setup chapters. And last night with Keith Lee relinquishing the championship, that's going to be a less than stellar moment. You're setting up, you got to push the heel at some point, so you got Karrion Kross doing his thing. Last night for NXT was more of, like I said, there's more of a setup for bigger things to follow. But still, I thought both shows were good. Yeah, I really enjoyed both shows last night.
It's interesting. The demo god of the 18 to 49, 0.32 was the rating for AEW last night. 0.17 the rating for NXT last night. Well, last week you started talking about the demo god, right? This was their highest rating in that demo since May 27th.
He's the son of Odin.
If you tell them, they will do it, right? So, gentlemen, what a show tonight. An hour and 45 minutes, coming up on an hour and 46 minutes. Great discussion. We covered 4 shows in that period of time. We did not want to slight, I will just say this, actually. I did want to slight Extreme Rules because I couldn't watch it, unfortunately. I watched it. I couldn't watch it. After the eye for an eye match, I tuned out. And then I'm like, all right, I'm going to try this swamp gimmick. And I couldn't do it. So
that wasn't even a match. What they did. Yeah. It wasn't even a match.
No. So 4 shows, 1 week, excluding Raw and SmackDown that will be tomorrow night. The superstars, the greatest in order of, I think, greatness would have been, from what I watched, AEW Dynamite, Impact Slammiversary, NXT, Impact's weekly show, in that order, in my opinion. I'm not going to ask you guys to do the same unless you want, but what parting comments do you have for our audience this week here on the Super Show?
I ain't got shit to say. No, I just say, now more than ever, wrestling needs its fans. And we know that just by watching it, but you guys at home, tell us what you like too. We want to hear feedback from you guys.
Absolutely.
Hey, Shane, what is the latest and greatest Highway to Helms about?
Well, we're going to be talking about coming up. I know I want to talk about Mike Tyson and Roy Jones Jr. because I can't believe that's going to happen. But I feel like Jericho knocking out the way he just knocked out Marco Stunt with one punch. That's why Tyson's afraid. That's what I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and we even talk about that. The whole Mike Tyson thing with AEW is now going to be put on hold.
And we can't. And if we've knocked anything creatively, nothing we've knocked was worse than the Washington football team being the new name,
literally,
for the NFL team from Washington.
Is that Washington? Right? You want us to change our name? You want us to change our name? We'll change our name. Okay, it's the Washington football team. Guess what? We won.
Well, there you have it. It's WFT, but it should be WTF.
Are the Panthers going to last? Because I personally find that name offensive.
The Panthers, you do. I find it playing offensive on both of those teams.
And the Green Bay Packers, Dave. That's all kinds of offensive.
Oh, for multiple different types of people. There's no question about that. Yes.
All right, guys. What it is.
Well, thank you so much. Appreciate the conversation. Appreciate all of you joining us live on our social media channels, including YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. And, of course, on Fight TV, FITE Fight. We appreciate it. Want to hear your comments on the show. The comments continue. We'll be live again next week. You know what? This show was so fun. We're going to replay it Saturday night live here on Fight TV. Well, actually, can you do a replay live?
Sure, of course. Just on time.
Replay it live Saturday night, rather, at 7 p.m. on Fight TV. So until next time, America, We will. I'm going to watch Unsolved Mysteries on Netflix because if you haven't, you need to do it. That's some good shiznit, boys. If you were a fan of the show, you don't like Unsolved Mysteries, Shane?
No, I like solved mysteries.
I didn't get that show. Anyways, for David Hiro, otherwise known as that one, and Shane Helms, the star of the Super Show, this is Damian Nelson saying thank you so much for joining us here tonight on Fight TV. Thank you for your comments, actively engaging during the show. We'll see you again live Saturday night on Fight TV, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Farewell, everyone.